December 6th, 1941. Yokosuka Naval Base, Japan, 5:30 hours. The harbor is shrouded in mist, the water a mirror of gray steel and quiet anticipation. Warships lie anchored, their silhouettes long and solemn beneath the soft glow of dawn. The air is heavy with the scent of salt and fuel oil, mingling with the faint aroma of breakfast fires from shore kitchens. Crewmen move along the decks of the carriers Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, checking the fit of deck equipment, adjusting catapults, and inspecting torpedo racks. Every footstep echoes on metal decks slick with condensation. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, tall, imposing in a dark uniform adorned with gold braid and a chest of medals, strides across the pier. His polished boots click against the wood. He pauses at the bow of the Akagi, eyes narrowing as he surveys the calm waters. His face, usually composed, bears a faint crease of tension. Around him, aides clutch clipboards and maps, whispering figures and numbers, the hum of preparation filling the silence. The junior officer bows. Admiral, the strike force is fully prepared, all aircraft fueled and armed. Yamamoto nods slowly, eyes tracing the silhouettes of the bombers and fighters lined across the decks. Good. Ensure every pilot knows the plan. Precision and surprise are paramount. His voice is quiet but carries the weight of command. Beyond the pier, the harbor lies empty of civilian craft, a ghostly stillness that belies the violence that will soon erupt. You can almost hear the machinery waiting, the catapults, the propellers, the engines, ready to launch a wave of destruction. Yamamoto inhales sharply, feeling the anticipation ripple through the base. There's a tension in the air, a premonition. Though no one speaks it aloud at T6 o'clock hours, the first pilots gather, briefing their wing leaders on navigation paths across the Pacific, the locations of targets and fallback procedures. The men are young, barely in their 20s, but their eyes are sharp, focused, alive with a dangerous mixture of excitement and fear. Yamamoto watches, hands clasped behind his back, noting the efficiency of the crews, the precision of every motion. He feels the weight of what is to come pressing down on him, that a plane's engine roars as it taxis along the deck. The vibration travels through the pier, rattling loose boards beneath Yamamoto's feet. He turns slightly, sensing something beyond the immediate mechanics of war. There is a silent forewarning in the rhythm of preparation, a pulse he has felt before in strategy rooms, in the late hours of planning, when maps and charts are spread and futures debated. This will be swift, calculated, and decisive, he murmurs to himself, almost inaudibly. His eyes drift to the horizon, the faint line where water meets sky. A whisper of doubt creeps in, fleeting, easily ignored. And yet, beneath the cloak of confidence, there is the shadow of awareness, that striking first, while seemingly advantageous, may awaken forces beyond imagination. Forces that, once stirred, cannot easily be contained as ship's bell rings. Orders are called across the deck. Crewmen rush to stations, securing hatches, checking fuel lines, and testing radio equipment. Yamamoto steps back, observing, feeling the orchestration of men and machines like a conductor of an immense, dangerous symphony. Each movement is deliberate. Each breath counts. And beneath it all, a quiet fear persists. The realization that the act they are about to commit may change the course of history in ways no map or strategy can predict. The sun rises slowly over the misty harbor, glinting off the polished steel of the carriers and the calm waters. The engines of the planes are warming. The air smells of fuel and possibility. Yamamoto turns away from the bow, walking toward the command center aboard Akagi, his expression unreadable, his thoughts hidden behind practiced composure. He has planned the attack meticulously. He has orchestrated every detail. And yet, a seed of premonition stirs in his mind, whispering that the consequences of today may echo far beyond the calm of this morning. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, 7:55 hours. The sun barely touches the horizon, casting long, pale rays over a harbor that seems impossibly serene. Battleships and cruisers lie at anchor, hulls glinting in the morning light, smoke stacks idle, decks quiet. Sailors move lazily, unaware of the storm about to descend. Some carry breakfast trays, others perform routine maintenance, a few lean on railings, stretching, rubbing the sleep from their eyes. High above, the first Japanese aircraft slice through the sky. Val dive bombers, K torpedo planes, Zero fighters, an orchestrated arrow of destruction. Engines scream, slicing the air with mechanical precision. Wingmen hold formation with meticulous discipline, a silent testament to months of training. Clouds scatter across the morning sky, shadows playing over the water's surface like dark omens that on Battleship Row, sailors glance upward, puzzled at the sudden roar. A torpedo drops into the water, trailing bubbles that lead it toward the unsuspecting USS Arizona. The ship lurches violently as the torpedo strikes. Smoke and fire erupt, flames licking the hull, black columns curling into the sky. Explosions rip through the decks, throwing sailors into the harbor or into burning metal. The cacophony of alarms, shouts, and gunfire collides with the roar of engines and detonation of bombs. Back aboard the Japanese carriers, Admiral Yamamoto stands rigid on the bridge of the Akagi, his hands gripping the rail. Through his binoculars, he watches the precision of the attack unfold. Ships ablaze, airfields cratered, the chaos spreading like wildfire. Pilots swoop low over runways, machine guns rattling, bombs thudding into hangars. Smoke rises in thick black towers, blotting the horizon that a young lieutenant beside him gasps. "Admiral, it's overwhelming." They are unprepared. Yamamoto doesn't speak immediately. His eyes are fixed on the scene below. The meticulous execution, the coordination, the scale, it is nearly flawless. The pride is there, faint and buried beneath the weight of command. But alongside it is something else, a creeping, intangible unease he whispers to himself, almost inaudibly. "I fear all we have done is awaken a sleeping giant." Below, sailors struggle to man anti-aircraft guns, some firing blindly, others abandoning stations, all fighting against the inevitability of the strike. Smoke fills the air, mingling with steam, and oil slicks on the water. Men shout orders, give aid, pull wounded comrades to safety, yet the tide of destruction seems inexorable. From the deck of the Soryu, a pilot prepares to dive toward Hickam Field, bombs secured under wings. His eyes are fierce, youthful, filled with determination. He trusts in the strategy, in the plan, in the training, but in the periphery of his vision, he sees the scale of resistance beginning to form, anti-aircraft flak rising, and a hint of something larger waiting beyond the horizon. Yamamoto watches every movement, the dance of death choreographed perfectly. And yet the whisper in his mind grows louder. The Americans, massive and resourceful, will rebuild. They will retaliate. They have numbers, factories, resources he cannot match. And the giant, once awake, will not slumber again, that he turns away from the railing, face shadowed by the morning sun and brim of his cap. Around him, aides note the success, taking mental stock of destroyed ships, burning hangars, and downed aircraft. But Yamamoto's mind drifts forward, beyond the victory of today, toward an uncertain future. A future where one act of audacity has awakened forces far beyond his control. He straightens his shoulders, masks the unease, and issues the next command. The attack continues with relentless precision. Pilots dive, bombs detonate, and the harbor becomes a living inferno. Flames reflect off the water, black smoke blotting the sky. Sailors scream, dive, and fight. The world below is chaos incarnate, and above it, the carriers glide with uncanny silence. Yet beneath the victory, Yamamoto's premonition weighs heavier with every strike. The destruction is immediate, tangible, but the consequences he senses will ripple across oceans, factories, and generations. The sleeping giant he feared has been stirred, and there is no returning it to slumber. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor, 9:15 hours. The morning sun now burns higher, though its light is choked by billows of black smoke rising from the harbor. The USS Oklahoma lies capsized, her twisted superstructure jutting from the water like the bones of some great beast. Sailors cling to floating debris, their faces streaked with oil and soot, shouting for comrades lost or missing beneath the wreckage. The cries carry across the water, mingling with the distant roar of Japanese planes, the echo of bombs, and the crack of small arms. On the deck of the Akagi, Admiral Yamamoto peers through his binoculars, unflinching. His jaw is set, eyes narrowed against the smoke. Every detail of the attack burned into his mind. The precise angles of dive bombers, the trajectory of torpedoes, the explosions rocking the battleships below. He takes note of the sheer scale of destruction, the efficiency of the plan, the chaos wrought by his hand. But beneath the calculated satisfaction lies an awareness that gnaws at him. This success is not a triumph, it is a provocation. He can feel it in the air, in the trembling voices of his aides, in the urgency of pilots returning to the carriers, in the endless column of smoke that rises like a warning to the skies. Nearby, a young ensign reports the damage, voice trembling with excitement and awe. "Admiral, the battleships are in flames. The airfields devastated. We have crippled their Pacific fleet." Yamamoto lowers his binoculars slowly, eyes tracing the edges of the harbor. "Yes, but at what cost to ourselves in the future?" His words are quiet, almost a confession. Around him, officers do not hear, or perhaps they do not understand, the weight behind the statement. Far below, sailors cling to life. Some float in the oily water, some dive beneath twisted metal to rescue trapped comrades. Their fear is palpable raw. Smoke burns their eyes. The scent of burning fuel and cordite fills their lungs. A ship explodes nearby, sending a shockwave across the harbor. Spray arcs over the decks of the remaining vessels, slamming into sailors and debris alike. Every second stretches, unrelenting, each life teetering between survival and death. Yamamoto watches with a cold clarity. The initial strike is complete. The enemy is stunned. The Japanese air crews perform flawlessly. And yet he feels the stirrings of something greater, a force not yet visible, but certain to rise in response. The United States, he knows, will rebuild. Factories will hum. Carriers will be launched. Planes will fill the skies. And the giant, once roused, will not forgive. He turns to his aide, voice low, deliberate. "Make sure the pilots are ready for extraction. Fuel reserves must be monitored carefully. Return with all due caution. Our advantage is fleeting." The aide bows, noting the command, but Yamamoto does not speak of what he knows cannot be seen on any map. The awakening of a military and industrial titan. The destruction wrought here today will sow the seeds of decades-long war, and each ship sunk, each plane downed, each life lost will only harden the resolve of the nation now stirred into action. Around him, the carriers hum with activity as returning aircraft land, wings scraping, engines screaming against arrestor wires. Pilots leap from cockpits, adrenaline still coursing, faces streaked with sweat, oil, and smoke. Mechanics rush to refuel and rearm planes, voices shouting over the din of metal and engines. Yamamoto walks along the deck, observing each movement, noting the precision, the discipline, but also the impermanence. Above all, the words he whispered hours earlier reverberate through his mind, haunting him even as victory is proclaimed. "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant." He does not speak these words aloud now. No one would understand their weight. Yet he feels them as a physical presence, coiled like a serpent beneath the waves of the Pacific, waiting, patient, inevitable. The smoke clears slightly, revealing the full scope of the devastation. Battleships burn like funeral pyres, hangars lie in ruins, and the wounded float among the wreckage. Yamamoto steps back, shading his eyes against the smoke and the rising sun. The harbor is silent except for the crackling of fires and the distant moans of the injured. For the first time, he allows himself to imagine the coming months, the industrial might of America mobilizing in response. The carriers, tanks, aircraft, and factories that will rise to challenge the very strategy he has executed with such precision. The victory at Pearl Harbor is absolute for the moment, but the future is already taking shape, and it is enormous. It is relentless. He straightens his uniform, smooths his cap, and walks toward the bridge interior. His face betrays nothing, but inside, he carries the burden of foresight, the knowledge that this strike, brilliant though it is, has set in motion a chain of events he may not survive to see completed, but whose consequences will reshape the Pacific and the world. December 8th, 1941. Tokyo, Japan, 8:15 hours. The city awakens under a gray winter sky, the rising sun muted by smoke from chimneys and factories. Soldiers march along the streets, rifles slung over shoulders, caps pulled low against the chill. Civilians hurry to work, unaware of the full scope of the strike executed across the Pacific hours earlier. Newspapers are already printing the headlines: Hawaii attacked, U.S. Pacific Fleet damaged. The words ripple through cafes and offices, through the homes of merchants and students, carrying a mixture of triumph, disbelief, and a rising sense of war's inevitability. In the Imperial Naval Headquarters, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto sits behind a polished wooden desk, maps and dispatches spread before him. The morning sun streams through tall windows, glinting off medals and framed photographs on the wall. Officers rush in and out, delivering telegrams, reading aloud reports of the assault, and debating next steps. Yamamoto listens carefully, nodding occasionally, but his mind is elsewhere, weighing the scale of consequences that a courier bows, placing a fresh dispatch on the desk. Yamamoto reads the words silently. Reports of American casualties, damage assessments, surviving ships, and the first glimpses of potential retaliation. His fingers trace the lines on the map: Pearl Harbor, the Hawaiian Islands, the trajectory of naval forces, and his eyes narrow. Each piece of information, while confirming success, also paints a broader picture. The United States is vast, industrially powerful, and capable of mobilizing an unprecedented response. Ensure that every carrier and aircrew is ready for redeployment, he commands. We cannot linger or waste momentum. The Americans will respond swiftly. An aide hesitates. Admiral, they are stunned. They will need time to recover. Perhaps months. Yamamoto leans forward, voice measured, almost a whisper. Time is an illusion. They are a giant, and giants, once awakened, do not slumber. They only prepare. Outside the headquarters, the streets hum with energy. Citizens discuss the attack with curiosity and patriotism, waving flags and chanting slogans. Soldiers march past, boots clicking on stone pavements, their breaths forming clouds in the cold air. Yamamoto looks out over the city, noting the optimism, the fervor, but beneath it, a gnawing doubt persists. For all their preparation, he senses the enormity of what has been stirred. The attack has achieved tactical brilliance, yet strategic peril lies ahead. Across the Pacific, the first ripples of the response begin. Ships are readied in distant ports. Aircraft carriers and battleships scramble crews, and intelligence officers trace flight paths and attack plans. In Washington, D.C., President Franklin D. Roosevelt drafts a response speech, his face grave, pen scratching furiously across parchment. Every document, every telegram, every phone call adds to a growing awareness. The United States is now fully engaged, a leviathan stirred from sleep. Yamamoto studies the reports, noting each detail: the surviving carriers, the shipyards, the military installations that remain intact, the industrial capacity that cannot be destroyed from a single strike. His trained mind calculates possibilities, probabilities, and risks. The numbers are staggering. The enemy is enormous, resilient, and patient. He rises from his chair, walking slowly to the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Snow dusts the rooftops of the surrounding buildings. In the courtyard below, Officers rehearse drills. Men fall into formation with mechanical precision. The sight, orderly and disciplined, is meant to reassure, but for Yamamoto, it only deepens the awareness. Japan has struck a blow, but has also awakened something far larger than itself. He whispers once more, to no one in particular. I fear all we have done is awaken a sleeping giant, and the weight of the world now moves against us. The words hang in the cold morning air, carried on the wind, blending with the distant hum of activity across Tokyo, across the Pacific, and across oceans that will soon become battlefields. The victory at Pearl Harbor is complete, yet the first seeds of Japan's eventual struggle and eventual defeat have already been sown. December 8th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. Afternoon. Smoke still curls from the twisted hulls of the USS Arizona and USS Oklahoma, black plumes blotting the sky. Sailors scramble across charred decks, some dragging the wounded, others carrying buckets of seawater to douse lingering flames. The smell of burning oil, cordite, and splintered wood hangs thick in the harbor. Bomb craters pock the surrounding airfields, shattered hangars exposing smoldering aircraft, wings twisted like paper in the wind. Amid the devastation, Lieutenant Commander James "Jim" Whitaker of the USS Nevada moves through the chaos. Sweat mixes with soot streaking his face, eyes scanning for survivors. A deck officer shouts over the roar of fire and engines. Damage control teams to the bow. Get those fires under control. Whitaker nods, sprinting toward a collapsed hatch where men shout for help. The air is thick with smoke and tension, each breath a struggle, each second a test of endurance. Above the harbor, the Japanese strike force is withdrawn, engines screaming, wings slicing through the Pacific sky. From the deck of the Akagi, pilots and observers watch the chaos below. Some grin with pride at the destruction. Others shift uncomfortably, sensing the magnitude of what has been unleashed. Smoke and flames distort the horizon, painting a tableau of victory. But in that tableau, an unseen force stirs. Yamamoto stands on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the harbor, binoculars resting against his chest. The roar of departing planes fades, leaving only the crackle of fires and the cries of the wounded. His expression is inscrutable, yet his thoughts are turbulent. The attack has been precise, almost flawless, yet he cannot ignore the magnitude of what he has awakened. The United States, he knows, is vast, industrially powerful, and capable of mobilizing a response that will dwarf today's achievement. That a junior officer approaches cautiously, delivering updates on the damage inflicted. Admiral, battleships sunk or damaged. Arizona, Oklahoma, West Virginia, California. Airfields neutralized. Enemy aircraft destroyed, 188. Yamamoto nods slowly. His voice is measured, almost reflective. Yes, the immediate victory is ours. But we must understand the long game. The giant we struck today will rise. Its factories, its fleets, its resolve. They are greater than we can fully comprehend. The words hang in the air, unspoken by the aides, but palpable in their faces. They feel the exhilaration of triumph, yet sense the weight of history pressing down. Yamamoto does not offer reassurance. He only studies the horizon, the harbor burning like a funeral pyre, the reflections of fire rippling across the water. Back on the USS Nevada, Whitaker fights to steady the ship, coordinating with crewmen to bring fires under control. Men scream as water hisses against flames, timbers crack under heat, and the groan of metal echoes across the hull. Amid the chaos, there is courage, determination, and human resilience, the first signs of the giant awakening. Yamamoto steps away from the rail, pacing slowly. Each footfall echoes softly on the polished deck. He understands, with unnerving clarity, that the assault has achieved tactical brilliance. But strategically, it has committed Japan to a course with no retreat. The United States will respond, and its response will be relentless. Factories will produce planes faster than they can be destroyed. Ships will be built in numbers unimaginable. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen will train, fight, and endure in a conflict measured not by immediate losses, but by sustained industrial might. He turns to his aide, voice quiet but firm. Ensure every pilot is debriefed. Fuel and ordnance must be replenished. The Americans will not remain idle, and we must be ready for what comes next. The aide nods, taking in the command, unaware that Yamamoto's mind is already decades ahead, calculating not battles, but the industrial, social, and moral momentum that will shape the Pacific War. In his heart, he feels the truth. The giant has been stirred, and the tide of history is already moving against them. Smoke drifts lazily across the harbor, mixing with the cries of survivors and the scent of charred steel. The Japanese pilots vanish into the distance, leaving the destroyed fleet behind. Yamamoto watches, unblinking, silently marking the moment, the day when a sleeping giant opened its eyes. December 9th, 1941. Tokyo, Japan, morning. The Imperial Naval Headquarters is alive with movement. Officers rush between rooms carrying telegrams, maps, and radio dispatches, voices rising and falling in measured tones. The sun filters through tall windows, illuminating polished wood and brass instruments. Yamamoto sits at his desk, hands folded, staring at a map of the Pacific. His face, though calm, carries the shadow of premonition. Reports arrive in rapid succession. Ships surviving the strike, aircraft repair capabilities, potential American carrier movements, and the first whispers of industrial mobilization. Yamamoto's eyes trace the lines of communication and supply routes, the sprawl of naval bases, and the factories scattered across the continental United States. His mind calculates, anticipates, and weighs probabilities with the precision of a chess master. But even he cannot fully grasp the giant he has roused. The young aide stands at attention, voice trembling slightly. Admiral, Washington has declared war. The U.S. Pacific Fleet is regrouping. Mobilization is underway. Yamamoto leans back in his chair, expression unreadable. The words are expected, yet they carry the weight of inevitability. He whispers to himself, almost inaudibly, "The giant awakens, and soon it will move." Outside, the city hums with patriotic fervor. Citizens hang flags, soldiers drill in the streets, and radio broadcasts celebrate the surprise attack. Yet, for Yamamoto, every act of celebration is undercut by the silent calculation of consequence. Each cheer, each newspaper headline, each salute to victory is a reminder that the world's response is now active, mobilized, and immense. That he walks to a side room where a small staff gathers. Detailed operational plans are laid out, focusing on the next phase of expansion into Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands. Yamamoto studies each document, his finger tracing lines across maps, noting choke points, naval lanes, and strategic harbors. Every detail is accounted for, yet his mind continually returns to Pearl Harbor, to the men in the water, the burning ships, the immensity of what they have provoked. "Remember this, gentlemen," he finally says, voice low but commanding. "Victory today does not secure peace tomorrow. Every action, every ship sunk, every town occupied will only awaken further resistance. We must understand the magnitude of the challenge before us." The staff nods, though many do not fully comprehend the weight of his warning. For them, the thrill of success, the excitement of operational command dominates. For Yamamoto, foresight is a burden. He can already see the outlines of a long war, a conflict of resources, manpower, and industrial capacity stretching across oceans and years, far beyond the immediacy of triumph. He steps to a window, looking out over the rooftops of Tokyo, the morning sun casting long shadows over the city. Steam rises from factory chimneys, horse-drawn carts move along cobblestone streets, and the world carries on, unaware that a conflict of unprecedented scale has begun. In his mind, Yamamoto calculates the time it will take for the United States to strike back, the force they will amass, and the resilience of a nation stirred from slumber. But he closes his eyes briefly, the weight of foresight pressing down, like a tangible presence. Every decision made today, every victory claimed, is a step in a chain that cannot be reversed. The sleeping giant is awake. It will learn, adapt, and retaliate with a ferocity that will define the coming years. Yamamoto straightens, brushing his uniform, and steps back to his desk. Orders are issued, communications dispatched, preparations made for the next offensive moves. Yet in the quiet moments between commands, his mind lingers on the realization that will haunt him until his death. In striking first, Japan has not secured dominance. Instead, it has awakened an adversary of unimaginable scale. The city continues its morning rhythms. Soldiers march, engines roar, and factories churn. Across the Pacific, responses begin to take shape. Plans formulated, fleets readied. Yamamoto watches it all, fully aware that the war he has ignited has become larger than anyone, anywhere, could have predicted. December 10th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. Early morning. The harbor is quiet now, the fires reduced to smoldering wrecks. Ships that once stood proud in orderly rows are broken hulks, jagged steel jutting from the water. Sailors wade through oil-slicked water, hauling survivors from floating debris. Smoke drifts across the calm harbor, the acrid scent of cordite and burning fuel lingering in the chill dawn air. Lieutenant Commander Robert Fletcher climbs atop the twisted deck of the USS West Virginia, scanning the water for signs of life. His face is streaked with soot and blood, his uniform soaked. He shouts orders to men below, coordinating rescue efforts. Every movement urgent, precise, and alive with human desperation. Around him, others work tirelessly, lifting bodies, tying survivors to ropes, and forming chains to bring men to safety. The chaos is palpable, the human cost immense. Above, reconnaissance aircraft circle the harbor, noting damage, smoke, and scattered survivors. The Japanese strike force has withdrawn, engines fading into the distance. On the deck of the Akagi, Admiral Yamamoto stands, arms crossed behind his back. The horizon is a canvas of smoke, fire, and human suffering. He observes with measured detachment, noting every detail, the angles of torpedo impacts, the precision of bomb strikes, the resulting chaos. But beneath the discipline of command, there is the quiet weight of premonition he turns to an aide. Ensure all pilots are accounted for. They must return safely to base. Fuel and ordnance levels are critical. We cannot afford losses now. The aide bows, noting the command, but Yamamoto's mind is elsewhere. His gaze drifts to the horizon, imagining the vast continental United States, the factories, shipyards, and airfields that remain untouched. He calculates the timeline, the resources, the industrial capacity that will be mobilized in response. The victory here, brilliant though it is, has only stirred a force far larger than the triumph itself. Back in the harbor, sailors continue their rescue efforts. Smoke curls around twisted masts, flames flicker against the hulls of sunken vessels, and the cries of survivors pierce the morning air. Fletcher pauses to assist a young seaman struggling with an injured comrade. Their movements are methodical yet frantic, a dance of urgency and exhaustion. The human cost of the strike is evident in every grimace, every shout, every act of courage. Yamamoto watches silently, noting the contrast between the immediate tactical victory and the long-term strategic implications. He whispers under his breath, "The giant awakens. Today we strike, but tomorrow it will strike back." The words hang over the harbor like smoke from the still-burning wreckage. He straightens, masks his thoughts, and issues further operational commands, ensuring that every detail of the retreat and recovery is meticulously executed. Every maneuver, every pilot accounted for, every plane refueled and repaired is a momentary control in the midst of an uncontrollable chain of events. As he steps back from the railing, Yamamoto considers the larger picture. The attack has succeeded in shocking the United States, but it has not destroyed its capacity to respond. Factories, shipyards, and the population itself will mobilize. The war is no longer a matter of planning and surprise. It is a contest of endurance, resources, and willpower. And in that contest, the giant he awakened looms ever larger. Across the Pacific, in the morning light, the first reports of American mobilization are reaching commanders. Factories begin reopening, recruitment accelerates, and intelligence agencies start tracing the full scale of the attack. Yamamoto is aware of these signals. Each telegram, each report, confirms his worst fears. The giant is not only awake, it is moving. Smoke continues to curl over Pearl Harbor, mingling with the cries of the wounded and the crackle of smoldering steel. In the midst of human chaos and destruction, the realization settles in Yamamoto's mind with chilling clarity. Japan's daring, audacious strike, executed with meticulous precision, has done more than cripple a fleet. It has set in motion a force it cannot contain. And somewhere beyond the horizon, across oceans and continents, the sleeping giant has opened its eyes, stretching its limbs, and preparing for a war that will redefine the Pacific and the world. December 12, 1941. Tokyo, Japan, midday. The Imperial Naval Headquarters buzzes with activity. Officers rush in and out of rooms, carrying telegrams, reports, and maps of the Pacific theater. Yamamoto sits at a polished table, tracing the coastlines of Hawaii, Midway, and the Philippine archipelago with a finger, his eyes narrowed, thoughts deep. Outside, the sun casts long shadows across the courtyard where soldiers drill with mechanical precision, their rifles glinting in the pale winter light. Despite the victory at Pearl Harbor, unease gnaws at Yamamoto. Intelligence reports arrive, detailing the surviving elements of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Aircraft carriers that escaped destruction, battleships under repair, and the rapid mobilization of shipyards along the continental coast. Each telegram adds to the mosaic of realization. Japan's audacious strike has provoked a nation with nearly limitless resources, and the full weight of that nation will now be turned toward them. A staff officer bows, presenting a report on American industrial capabilities. Admiral, estimates suggest that within months, aircraft production will double, and shipbuilding has already accelerated. The Americans are responding far faster than anticipated. Yamamoto's eyes remain fixed on the report, his voice low but deliberate. This is precisely what I feared. All we have done is awaken a sleeping giant, one whose strength we have yet to measure. He rises, walking slowly to the balcony overlooking the city. The streets below are alive with celebration, banners waving, citizens cheering the news of Japan's tactical victory. Soldiers march in formation, the click of their boots a steady rhythm. Yet Yamamoto sees beyond the immediate triumph. Each act of joy, each expression of pride, masks the deeper truth. The giant is stirring. It will learn. It will adapt. It will strike back with a magnitude that Japan cannot match. In a quiet corner of the headquarters, a young officer hesitates, speaking cautiously. Admiral, some suggest we press further into Southeast Asia immediately, exploiting the shock we've delivered. Yamamoto turns sharply, the weight of his gaze settling on the young man. Do not be blinded by temporary success. Immediate gains may blind us to long-term consequences. The giant we have roused is patient, resourceful, and relentless. Every action we take now will shape the path of war for years to come. The officer nods, swallowing his hesitation, while Yamamoto returns to his maps. His mind traces supply lines, defensive positions, and strategic choke points across the Pacific. He calculates probabilities, weighing every variable. He understands that victory at Pearl Harbor is tactical, fleeting, and costly, not decisive. And he knows that every move Japan makes from this point forward will be watched, measured, and countered by a foe whose industrial might and population are nearly limitless. Outside, the winter sun glints off rooftops and pavements. Factories hum, steam rising from chimneys, while radio broadcasts praise the strike and encourage patriotism. Yamamoto observes it all with quiet restraint, recognizing the irony. While the nation celebrates, the seeds of prolonged conflict are already planted. The sleeping giant has awakened, And the coming war will demand more than audacity. It will demand endurance, innovation, and resources Japan cannot hope to match. That he pauses at the balcony railing, eyes tracing the distant horizon. Somewhere across the Pacific, the United States mobilizes. Fleet officers confer, shipyards clatter with activity, and aircraft fill hangars waiting for deployment. Yamamoto feels the weight of inevitability pressing down. Japan's moment of tactical brilliance has irrevocably set the stage for a long, grueling struggle that he whispers once again, almost as if to himself. I fear all we have done is awaken a sleeping giant, and we may yet regret having done so. The words linger in the crisp winter air, unheeded by the celebrations below, yet fully understood by the man who foresaw the consequences of audacity. Outside, Tokyo continues its rhythms. Soldiers march, engines roar, and factories churn, unaware that the world has shifted, that a giant now stirs across the oceans, and that the war they have begun will stretch beyond imagination. March 1942. Coral Sea. Over the Pacific Ocean. The vast, rolling expanse of blue is broken only by the silhouettes of carriers and battleships, scattered like chess pieces across the ocean. Smoke curls from funnels, the scent of salt and fuel mingling in the humid air. From the flight deck of the Japanese carrier Shokaku, Lieutenant Takahashi crouches in the cockpit of his Zero fighter, eyes scanning the horizon for American vessels reported to be in the area. His fingers grip the control stick, knuckles white, as the engines roar to life. Below, sailors scurry across the deck, securing planes, checking fuel lines, and issuing orders with practiced efficiency. The choreography of war is precise, every movement calculated. Yet under the disciplined surface lies an unspoken tension. The U.S. Navy, previously presumed broken and stunned, is now formidable, advancing with unexpected coordination. Intelligence reports indicate that American carriers, thought to be dispersed or damaged beyond recovery, are now maneuvering strategically, their air wings ready to engage. In the command bridge, Admiral Yamamoto studies aerial reconnaissance maps, tracing the movements of the U.S. fleet with a steady hand. His expression is composed, but his eyes betray concern. The calculations are grim. The giant he feared has not only awakened, it is learning, adapting, and striking back in ways Japan had not fully anticipated. Every intelligence report confirms it. Aircraft carriers operational, airfields reinforced, and industrial production accelerating at an unprecedented pace. All squadrons prepare for immediate launch. Recon reports indicate enemy carriers to the northeast. Precision and coordination are critical. Yamamoto's voice is calm, but carries the weight of command, a reminder that even as the giant stirs, Japanese forces must maintain every advantage. Lieutenant Takahashi's squadron lifts off, the roar of engines mingling with the cries of seagulls and the distant slap of waves against the carrier hull. The pilots form tight formations, climbing into the sky with the precision of clockwork. Below, destroyers patrol, anti-aircraft guns ready, and every sailor feels the tension of a conflict that has grown far larger than a single engagement. Hours pass in the air and across the ships, maneuvers tight and deliberate. American reconnaissance aircraft spot the Japanese fleet, and their reports speed across the Pacific to commanders aboard the USS Lexington and USS Yorktown. Pilots briefed on the location of Japanese carriers. Sortie after sortie takes off, engines screaming across the expanse of ocean, and bombs begin to rain on the Japanese fleet. Explosions rock the decks, smoke curls skyward, and sailors scramble in chaotic precision to contain fires and secure aircraft. From the bridge of the Shokaku, Yamamoto observes the unfolding engagement. Tactical brilliance cannot mask the shifting tide. He notes each maneuver, the resilience of the American crews, the rapid reorganization of air wings, and the emerging capacity for coordinated strikes. The giant he feared is no longer hypothetical. It is real, active, and increasingly deadly, he whispers to himself, eyes narrowing on the horizon where smoke rises from Japanese vessels hit by American bombs. The giant has risen, and it will not rest until we are measured and found wanting. Below him, sailors and pilots continue their duties with fierce determination, unaware that each action is part of a larger pattern, a massive response to the audacity of Pearl Harbor. Every repair, every sortie, every counterattack is a step in the awakening of the force that Yamamoto foresaw, a force that will eventually shape the course of the entire Pacific War. As the sun dips toward the horizon, the Pacific glows gold against the rising smoke. The engagement continues, tactical victories and losses mingling. Yet Yamamoto remains aware that these skirmishes are only the beginning. The true scale of the giant's power, its industrial might, its endurance, and its capacity for retaliation cannot be measured in single battles. It will unfold across months, years, and oceans, reshaping the conflict in ways even the most meticulous plans cannot contain. April 18th, 1943. Bougainville, Solomon Islands. Dawn. The morning air is heavy with humidity and the smell of salt and diesel. Jungle foliage rustles under the weight of dew. Birds shriek faintly, and distant artillery fire echoes across the mountains, a low rumble like the growl of a distant predator. Japanese troops march along narrow trails, boots sinking into mud, rifles slung over shoulders, faces drawn with fatigue. Supply lines are stretched thin, provisions dwindling, and morale strained. And a tent near the command post. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto pores over maps of the Solomon Islands and Pacific theater operations. His uniform is creased from long hours in the humid jungle, his chest adorned with medals that seem heavy with the burden of foresight. Officers hover nearby, awaiting orders, but Yamamoto's gaze is distant, calculating, not for the battle in front of him, but for the inevitable trajectory of the war. Intelligence reports, sparse but alarming, have arrived. U.S. forces are strengthening their positions across the Solomon Islands, building airstrips and reinforcing naval support. Ship convoys arrive with surprising speed. Aircraft carriers rotate into theater, and industrial output from the continental United States continues to provide overwhelming material advantage. Each report is a reminder that the giant he had feared is now fully mobilized, its reach extending across the Pacific with unstoppable momentum. A young officer clears his throat nervously. "Admiral, the Americans have intercepted convoys, and our supply lines are under constant threat. Reinforcements will be difficult to maintain." Yamamoto leans back, expression calm but eyes sharp. He murmurs, almost to himself, "All we have done, all our victories, they have merely prolonged the inevitable." The giant, it learns. It adapts. It overwhelms. Outside, the sounds of battle echo faintly from the hills. Japanese troops move with disciplined precision, digging trenches, setting up defensive positions, and coordinating artillery fire. Each man fights with courage and discipline, yet the broader strategic reality is unavoidable. Japan's early triumphs cannot counterbalance the scale, endurance, and resourcefulness of the United States. Yamamoto rises, stepping toward the tent flap, eyes tracing the horizon where the first light glimmers on the ocean. Across thousands of miles, fleets move, factories hum, and a nation mobilizes with determination fueled by the shock of Pearl Harbor. He senses the truth with clarity and heaviness. Tactical brilliance is insufficient against a foe whose strength is measured not by single victories, but by sustained, limitless industrial and human power. He turns to his aides, issuing orders that are precise, deliberate, and meticulous. Every calculation matters, every deployment critical. Yet in the back of his mind, he knows that these measures can only delay the inevitable. The giant he warned of has grown too large to contain. The jungle is alive with tension. Shells whine through the trees, small arms fire echoes, and soldiers cling to every movement, every command, every possibility. Yamamoto watches, aware that courage and skill, though formidable, cannot alter the strategic trajectory. The balance of power has shifted irrevocably, And the war that began with audacity now continues under the relentless weight of the giant's awakening. He whispers once more, a phrase that has haunted him since the morning of December 7th, 1941. I fear all we have done is awaken a sleeping giant, and in awakening it, we have sealed our fate. Yamamoto straightens, the morning light catching the gold braid of his uniform, his medals gleaming faintly. The battle rages, but beyond the immediate horizon, the scope of the conflict is clear. Victory in individual engagements is fleeting. The ultimate war will be measured in years, factories, ships, and men. And the giant, now fully awake, will not rest until Japan is brought to its knees. Smoke curls from distant artillery explosions. The cries of soldiers echo through the jungle, and the Pacific stretches endlessly into the distance. A vast stage upon which the giant, awakened by the audacity of Pearl Harbor, will exact the inexorable force of history.